Hey everybody. In this video, I am going to show you the most simple and adorable slider card. This image is so cute. It's adorable. I colored it simply with alcohol markers, and I just want to show you all of the products that I used here. I used the grass box die, the up and down die, and these slider channels, which I'll talk about a little later in the video. Now, to make this, you will need a card base, a card panel to layer on your base, a pull tab, these amazing slider dies that can really be customized to fit any kind of scene, and I'll show you how. It turns out that these images needed the smallest size die because the balloons are really long compared to the card panel. So you'll see when I go to pull this up, they don't really have that far to go up on the card. So that's kind of the genius of these dies, is the different sizes. Now, I got this little caliper tool on Amazon. I love it. And if you want to measure your slider elements versus the particular kind of foam that you're using to make sure that your slider cards slide smoothly and have enough room, then I highly recommend this very low dollar tool. So anyway, I'm kind of a nerd like that, sorry. So I sort of marked where on the card I wanted the slider die to go, so I just quickly erased those marks. That's just you kind of playing with the die cut image and figuring out where you want it to move on your card. It can move side to side, up and down, etc. At first, when I saw these dies, I wasn't sure what all the different sizes were for, but then I realized that different sized die cut images have either a limited or a longer amount of space on the front of the card. So then I was like, wow, these people at MFT, they are smarter than I am. So let's just get that out of the way at first. Okay, so I am using some blue ink, and I'm going to temporarily adhere this card panel, as you saw me do, to the card base. And the reason that I'm doing this and the reason that I die cut it first is that when the slider mechanism is working and the delighted person that you're sending this card to is moving it up and down, the slider channel itself will not be just a stark white in contrast to the cloudy background. So I'll use both the pull tab and the slider channel that's already die cut, so I'm ink blending over it, to kind of seamlessly make this background work no matter what position the eventual slider is in. If you're like me, when you make an interactive card, you play with it like 300 times, like you're a toddler. And so it was really important to me that the entire scene be a cloudy background so that there wasn't just like kind of an abrupt white space in there. This is completely optional, of course, but you know, if you like this kind of thing like I do, then you'll want it to be sort of seamless. I could make cards with cloudy backgrounds with this little stencil for the rest of my life and be happy. Like if somebody sent me to a desert island and they're like, what's the one thing you want? I'm like, give me this cloud stencil and some blue ink and I'm happy. Looks like a sunny day. Now I went all the way up to the top of the pull tab. I will come back later and add a little bit of ink on bottom because that is actually pretty white on the bottom there. So little preview inserted into the video. So now I will ink blend the grass piece from the box die, which I love. I use these box dies all the time and cut them up and use them for other things, as you saw in my last video, but that's just how versatile they are. It's nice to have a nice clean die cut edge. Now, when you put your grass stencil down, it's very important that you put it the right way. Otherwise, you're going to get teeth instead of grass, and you're going to have to save that for Halloween. So make it the right way so the blades of grass are pointing up. Then I just took jalapeno popper ink, which is slightly darker, and ink blended a little hill in front. I just think it makes it look interesting. Two different sizes of blades of grass, a curve versus the straight. It's just all about contrast. That's what card making is, contrast. So now I will put a little bumper at the bottom of the pull tab. And all this does is just to make sure that it's not going to go past the bottom area that I want it to. I held it up briefly to my light just to make sure that it was kind of centered, and that will make sure that it doesn't just go shooting out the bottom of your card, which would be so embarrassing. So then you'll want to take your die cut and sort of position it over that channel and figure out where on the die cut image you would like the little slider piece to be so that you can make the scene kind of however you want it. So I'm figuring like the back of the little bunny's head. I can mark sort of where that is in the slider channel so I know where to put that little slider element. And it'll be covered up, so there's no need to erase this mark. Now, you know me, I love my sticky mats, so I put the little slide onto the sticky mat to hold it while I am sanding just lightly the surface to help it stick better. These little things are so genius. I went completely crazy and bought a bunch of packages of them. It's one of those things you don't want to run out of. And I love this Tombow metal glue. It's great for gluing plastic to paper, which is what we are doing here. So you'll want to put that down and just make sure it's centered and it's the right way. And that is what is going to move my die cut up and down. So now let me tell you a little cheat here. I very quickly colored this image after I die cut it with alcohol markers with zero shading whatsoever, none. My very favorite way to color with alcohol markers is to put down a layer of unblended alcohol ink and then come back in with any colored pencil. These are polychromos pencils, and you can already see on that one balloon how much more dimension it has with this very simple coloring. Now here's why this is my secret. With this style of coloring where you are putting colored pencil on top of the alcohol marker, you don't have to be good at either alcohol marker coloring or colored pencil coloring, because if you choose a shade that's just slightly darker than your alcohol marker, you can do super quick pencil coloring with no blending. So you really don't have to be good at either one of them. And so that's my little cheat. It makes for a very quick coloring, but you also get the great shading that you're used to when you see really accomplished alcohol marker artists or colored pencil artists do. But this is quicker and lazier, and so it's completely my jam. So what I do is I just choose for each item that I'm coloring. So in this case, the balloon, I just chose like a slightly darker kind of burgundy color, and you can see now they look a lot more dimensional. I went outside the lines just a tiny bit on that one balloon, so I'm using another trick, which is just white gel pen, just cover that up. And then I forgot the little things at the bottom of the balloon, so I went back and colored those in. Now, purple colored pencils are the perfect shading pencils for really literally any color that you're working on. It can be red, it can be green, it can be blue. Purple adds a really nice deep dark shadow down here at the bottom of the balloons, which I like, without being too heavy for the color like sometimes a black colored pencil can be. So just get yourself a good dark purple pencil and color away. Again, with the combination of alcohol markers and pencils, you also don't have to have the highest end pencils to get this done because you're not doing that blending. You're just doing very quick coloring. So at the bottom of each balloon, I will add this darker shadow. I think this adds so much, and I think when you see the photo of the finished card, you'll agree that it's a lot less flat than just my initial coloring was. I tried to add shadow where one balloon is in front of the other just to kind of make those a little bit distinct. And I'm going to shade the little bunny, which is Like the mouse is kind of stealing the show here. This bunny is so cute, but I feel like that tiny little mouse up there is like, hey, we all know I'm the cutest one in this scene, so stop hogging the limelight. But this bunny is pretty darn cute. I love this die because it's so intricate. It cuts out all the little spaces between those strings, and I think it makes it perfect for a slider card. Now I'm putting a pretty hard shadow on the right side of the bunny's face. When you see the close-up, I think you'll agree that this sort of cartoon style coloring really adds a lot. Even on a tiny image like this, these little characters are so small and sweet. On the bear, I am just using a dark brown. I'm going to use the same harder shadow on the same side of the face as the little bunny, just so that it sort of looks like I thought about light source for just a minute. And I like to put a little bit of shading every time there's a character with ears. I like to put a little bit of shading behind the head to make those sort of push back in space. But look how quick that coloring is. Seriously. This whole card, this is a little bit sped up. But this whole card took like 20 minutes to make. So it's a really easy, simple slider. And if you're just getting started with slider cards, I cannot recommend these little channels enough. It's the simplest way to do an interactive card, and it'll get you all the tools that you need to use interactive cards that have a little bit more motion going on than these. So now, in addition to the bumper at the bottom of the pull tab, I like to put a bumper on the sides just to make sure that it's going straight up and down. And the way that I do this is I put one at the top and one at the bottom while I'm holding it in place. And then it's held perfectly in the right place, and I can go back and put the other two on there. And you can put as many as you want. You could go all the way up the side of the pull tab, all the way down, whatever. Just make sure when you're doing this that you give yourself enough time for your glue to dry before you move on to the next step. But I really like the way that that looks. And then, as I said, there was a little bit too much white space on the bottom of the pull tab that you kind of see through the channel. So I added a little bit of blue, and it looks so seamless as it's moving through this little scene. So now I will add a touch of this same metal glue, which is really a plastic paper glue, and just make sure that the little pull tab is straight before just pressing the cute little bunny head down onto the slider element. Now this grass I will pop up. I wanted to make sure I had enough room for a foam tape on either side, and it will hide the bottom of the scene and also let them slide seamlessly up and down with that little extra bit of dimension. So that's how it works, and they just float up in the air. It's so adorable. So there's a little animation of it, and if you look closely, you can see how much detail the colored pencils add for very little work. So try these easy slider channels, and thanks so much for watching.